Today I'm going to give you the top 5 mistakes I see people make when they're looking into buying real estate in Puerto Rico. I've compiled this from comments on all of my videos as well as some mentoring I did in the past. So let's just get into it right now. The first mistake that I see people making is basically their plan just sucks to begin with, especially in the beginning stages. A lot of times maybe you came here, you saw Old San Juan when you came on a cruise and you fell in love, you saw the beauty of the island and the culture, and you thought how nice it would be to have a vacation home here or maybe to move here in retirement. And you don't know anything about the island, you don't know anything about the market, and everybody's got to start their plan somewhere, but a lot of people get pretty far down the road without understanding how any of this stuff works. Buying a house in Puerto Rico is not like buying a house on the mainland US. Realtors work differently. We're going to get more into that in a minute here, but everything is different. And so you've really got to do some research. You've got to figure out how the island works, how the real estate works. You got to figure out where you want to be on the island. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. But where you really need to start is getting your mind wrapped around the costs involved with living on the island. If you're planning to live here, if you're planning to do it as an investment, figuring out taxes and insurance and the cost of running the property. Electrical bills are really high. So if you're looking at doing an Airbnb or some kind of vacation rental, you got to really have a good handle on what the expenses look like. If you're moving here, you got to get a good handle on what living expenses look like. It is not cheaper to live in Puerto Rico than it is to live in the mainland for your day-to-day living. Going to Walmart, everything in the store costs a little bit more. Gas costs a little bit more. So cars aren't any cheaper. So there's a lot of things that are not cheaper. So if you're planning to think that it's some cheap island paradise, it's not. You got to really wrap your mind around the costs involved of all these different aspects, as well as your closing costs and how financing works. And we're going to get more into a lot of these in detail. But the first thing is just your plan, just the idea that it would be great to own a house in Puerto Rico. It's a great idea, but you got to do a lot of legwork before you get to the point where you're going to start talking to realtors and you're going to start making exploratory trips to the island and all those things. So you got to get as much information as you can to make sure that it's a viable situation for you. The second mistake that I see people make after they've successfully completed step 1, which is understanding the cost and how everything works, then the next thing, they don't have any clue what part of the island they want to be on. And so they come and they just end up flailing around because they don't have a specific plan of where they want to be on the island. Maybe you want to be in San Juan or Old San Juan, or you want to have a condo. Do you want to have a house? Do you want to be in Rincon? Do you want to go surfing? Do you want to be in Utuado? Do you want to be on the lake, in the mountains? You got to narrow down at least a pretty good idea of where you want to be. And if you don't have that yet, your first trip to the island should be to just circle the whole island. That's the way we did it before we bought a house. We'd been there to visit a couple times and we thought, hey, it'd be really nice to get a house here. So we rented a car and we booked like 3 nights in Rincon and 3 nights in Boquerón and a night in Ponce and a night in Humacao and a couple nights in San Juan and Old San Juan. We checked out Fajardo and we went around the island until we found the place that just the vibe sort of, clicked with us and it felt like somewhere we really wanted to be. So the first part of figuring out where you want to be is to search as much of the island as you can, find the place you want to be at. Don't start spending hours and hours looking at houses all over the island until you figure out where on the island you want to be. You got to narrow it down to a section or a quadrant or a city or a neighborhood before you spend. People waste a lot of time looking at individual houses before they know where they want to be on the island. The third mistake I see people making is once they figure out where they want to be, they go call a realtor, which we're going to talk about realtors as number 4. But number 3 is about financing. You need to get your financing in order before you go talk to a realtor and start, hammering down on looking at properties. There's a lot of things you need to do before you start looking at properties. That's kind of the point I want to make here is people just want to look at properties and they got to do all these other steps prior to that. So figuring out your financing is a big one. If you're going to pay cash, great, good. The whole process will be pretty easy for you. But if you're financing, you're getting a mortgage, there's a lot of things. The biggest mistake that I see people make is they'll call their bank or Rocket Mortgage or some online lender and they'll think they can get a pre-qualification from somewhere in the mainland US. And that's a huge mistake. You need to get somebody on the island to handle the financing for you. You need to understand how much you're going to have to put down and how the financing works. I'm not going to go into how loans work. I'm just going to tell you like step before you talk to a realtor and before you start looking at houses, get a good idea of how the financing works if you're getting a mortgage, and start talking to a lender and get the pre-approval process, because it can take a long time. You could find the perfect house and then find out it's going to take you 60 days to get a pre-approval from a lender, because things sometimes don't work as smoothly and efficiently as they do back in the US, the mainland US. So now that you understand how the whole process works, what everything costs, and you know the spot that you want to be in, and you've got your financing in order, now it's time to start contacting realtors and start to look at houses. So the way that realtors work in the island is a lot different. You're going to probably have a hard time finding a buyer's agent unless you're going to pay them out of your own pocket. They have access to the MLS, but a lot of realtors, real estate agents on the island aren't licensed or aren't part of the Realtor Association. So they're not putting their properties in the MLS. They're not sharing commissions. So most listing agents aren't going to share their commissions with the buyer's agent. So if you want a buyer's agent, more than likely you're going to have to pay them out of your own pocket. And if you don't want to do that, that means you have to do all of the legwork of calling you want to see 6 properties today or tomorrow, you got to call 6 different real estate agents. You got to set up the times. You got to try to get that all coordinated. And most of them are very bad at answering their phone, answering text, answering emails. And it can be, if you got 6 houses you want to see next week, you might get appointments to see 2 of them. So you got to really start doing the legwork with the realtors to find out who's going to be returning your phone calls and see how you're going to be able to set those up. I would do that probably before you come to the island, so that you don't have a week on the island and you think you're going to see 15 houses and you can really only get appointments to see 3. So do that legwork before you get here if you don't already live on the island. So those were 5 of the biggest mistakes I see people making in their sort of journey to buy real estate on the island. And I'll give you a 6th one to kind of consider, is not understanding what you want the house to have. If you're going to live here, especially, you're going to want solar powers, or you're going to have a generator, probably have a cistern. You're going to want to think about what kind of windows you have, if they're hurricane-proof windows or if you have hurricane shutters. And you're going to need some sort of either an escape plan if a hurricane is coming, or a plan to survive on the island for long periods of time without electricity, without access to water, and those kind of things. So those are things to consider. What things you need the house to have. It's not just if you're buying a condo in Condado, it's about the amenities. Do you want a swimming pool or a tennis court or a hot tub or walk to bars? But there's more involved in knowing, what the house needs in case of inclement weather or emergencies. So I'll leave it at that. But that's just a 6th little bonus for you to consider, is knowing exactly what you want your house to have. And if you're thinking about retiring in Puerto Rico, go watch this video next. I did a video about sort of things to consider about retirement, because that's what this channel, we talk a lot about retirement. We talk about real estate. Just did a video about buying a house in Spain. I've been house shopping in Spain recently, so you can check that out. If you're thinking of other places in the world you might want to go, Puerto Rico or Spain or Europe or other places, there's all kinds of great information. So give me a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. I did that backwards. Give me a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.